O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Maui Nui is on a mission to help balance axis deer populations for the good of our environment, communities, and food systems. On the island of Maui, they've shared over 126,000 pounds of nutrient-dense protein with the Maui community. Secure your spot now. Become a snack subscriber and join in helping to build more resilient food and ecosystems on Maui. Visit MauiNuiVenison.com. That's MAUINUI venison.com and use promo code BEAR for 20% off your first order. You know what my favorite text is? A waypoint in the onX Hunt app to a goblin turkey. The list on the onX Hunt app features for chasing turkeys is long, but knowing exact public and private boundaries and land ownership details will help you find more places to hunt, whether that's on public or private. I'll be toting the Hunt app through the spring woods in a few states this year, and I recommend you do the same if you want more turkeys on your table. Also, onX has a special offer for you. Use code BEARGREASE to receive 20% off your membership at onxmaps.com/hunt this spring. My name is Clay Newcomb, and this is a production of the Bear Grease podcast called the Bear Grease Render, where we render down, dive deeper, and look behind the scenes of the actual Bear Grease podcast. Presented by FHF Gear, American-made, purpose-built hunting and fishing gear that's designed to be as rugged as the places we explore. Hey guys, I want to take a minute and talk about something that I think is really important. Right now in the United States, the spring 2022 legislative agendas and public comment periods for state agencies are coming out. And as I hope you've heard, many have strong anti-hunting and specifically anti-predator hunting agendas. Washington State recently canceled the spring 22 bear season despite it being recommended by their Fish and Wildlife. Colorado Bill SB 22-031 is set to ban mountain lion, bobcat, and lynx hunting. Arizona is experiencing a strategic push from the animal rights crowd to change current regulations about lion and bear hunting by flooding the public comment process. California has petitions filed to suspend bear hunting in the state until further population studies can be done. In Vermont, anti-hunting groups are pushing for a full ban on the use of hounds in hunting, and the list can go on. Years ago, if you'd told me that hunting was strategically under attack, I would have called you an alarmist, crying wolf when there wasn't one here. We all live in some version of cocoons with limited visibility of the wider nation. That cocoon is partly geographic, but mainly the cocoon is our own interest. When I started working with Bear Hunting Magazine in 2013, my eyes popped wide open when I saw bear hunting in the crosshairs of many states, and I saw how the tools of bear management and the methods of take that make bear hunting viable had already been banned in many places. Just as a short, non-complete overview, California banned bear hunting with hounds in 2013 and mountain lion hunting in the 1990s. Washington State banned hounds and bait for bear in 1996. Oregon banned bear hunting with hounds and bait in the mid-1990s. Colorado banned bear hunting with hounds and bait in 1992. In 2021, New Jersey banned all bear hunting completely on the basis of public opinion. Several years ago, we started saying that we've got to guard the gate. Guard the gate. Because predator hunting is the gate of the anti-hunting community to come into the space of the North American model of wildlife conservation, which I might add is the most successful act of wild animal and habitat management on planet Earth. Since the frontier days of America, there has always been a political and ideological divide between the urban and rural areas. The masses often have the attention of the politicians because of money and votes. And as I've always said, it's a one-phase sell to convince someone with no history or knowledge of hunting that killing a bear or a predator is bad. It's a much more complex story to convince them that it's a good thing. And this is why we as hunters have to work harder than those that oppose us. And we should, because we actually have stock in this thing. There is something that we've now seen work twice in the last year, and it's when hunters from all over the country, hunters of every stripe and creed, participate in communicating with legislators and the powers that be. Last year, a California bill was submitted to ban bear hunting, and the legislator was bombarded by people who love wildlife enough to know that hunting is good, and it swayed the political process, and the bill never made it to the floor. In just the last few months, the public outcry of hunters to reinstate the spring bear season in Washington got the spring bear hunt back on the agenda of the commission and was recently discussed again. Inside of a democracy, the main tool that we have is our voices. We all know that, and I urge us all to become more active participants in every way by making our voices heard. I've found the easiest way to do this is by following the lead of the wildlife organizations that have all this communication stuff dialed in. Most of them are a one-stop shop for letting your voice be heard. I have zero affiliation with any of these groups that I'm about to say, but I want to give you some groups to check out. And what you have to do is just get dialed in with these guys' systems and the way that they communicate with legislators and just do it. A good group that I love is Sportsman's Alliance. I would say do whatever they say. It's just that simple. A new group that I really like so far, and they are brand new, is a group called Howl for Wildlife. They seem to be really streamlining the process of communication. There are many other groups that are fantastic. Hunter Nation, Safari Club International, and the list goes on, including a bunch of state agencies, which are essential that you be members of. Whichever group allows you to easily and consistently communicate, use them. You know, years ago and when I was a kid, talking about being a public land hunter wasn't cool. I mean, that's where everybody hunted, and it's kind of the place you didn't want to hunt. In the last 10 years, it's become cool to talk about and to hunt public land. Well, I can tell you the new thing that we're going to make cool is defending hunting. I love it that some people are calling into account social media influencers to use their voice in a positive way. I mean, it's really a modern issue that we are going to have to deal with. And if we really love hunting, we will. And we'll joyfully unite our voices in very productive, educated, classy ways. We'll say, hunting is good. Wildlife management in this country has worked. We are the good guys that love wildlife and want to see all species of wildlife thrive. We're the guys that are putting our money towards habitat conservation inside of a country where urban sprawl is just devouring habitat. We are the good guys. Where an animal has cultural value through hunting, that animal and its habitat is protected. And lastly, the best thing that we can do to protect this lifestyle that we love is to clean the inside of our own cup and make sure that we're representing this lifestyle with honor and dignity in every aspect of our life. So, right on, guys. Let's get to the render.
Speaking of boots, you caught Brent on a good day, and he's not wearing his flip-flops.
Wow, this is the first time.
Crocs or flip-flops, I think, is all I've ever seen Brent Reeves in.
Well, the last time we went out to the mule barn.
He's squishing between your toes.
Well, no, I just didn't have access to everything, so I wore
this is the first time I've seen Brent wear
This ain't the first time you see me
boots.
wear boots. We've been all over the country together.
Brent,
and you wear Crocs.
And I wear
Brent is
Crocs.
not scared of coronavirus. He's just worried about getting worms.
Pinworms.
Wait just a second. Did you?
Well, I'm scared of getting them again.
Yeah. Did you forget your boots whenever y'all went hunting at bear camp? What did y'all come back for?
He forgot his bow.
Oh, I forgot my bow.
Your bow, not your boots. I remember it was important.
Yeah, I would have
went
went barefooted, but I gotta have the bow.
Welcome to the Bear Grease Render.
We're doing that.
We have some, man, this is a big day at the Bear Grease Render. We have some real guests with us today, boys, okay?
I could tell when I walked up and I saw you in your your dress clothes.
Yeah, he don't stink.
These dress clothes.
Clay's in dress clothes and Bryn's got shoes on. It's a pretty big day at the Bear
Brent
Grease
did wear his
podcast.
faded overalls today.
Hey, man, check out this
he
zip
has-
Gotta
tie.
balance it.
Very nice.
I hung that on a barbed wire fence,
Brent has a zip tie in lieu of a button.
so I zip tied them
Beautiful.
together.
Beautiful.
That's custom.
Custom.
Just
Custom
one of a
work there.
kind.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to introduce my guest right off the bat.
Oh,
Whoa, they go first.
Well, I'm just so excited.
You just want people to know who's in the room.
he's just going to blurt it out at some point if he tries to introduce
It's
us.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, usually I talk for 10 minutes before I introduce the mystery guest, right? Austin Booth.
That's right.
Austin Booth, director of the Arkansas Game and Fish, is with us. Awesome to have you, man.
It's really good to be here.
Thanks for coming to Northwest Arkansas.
Thanks for having me.
Austin
Yeah.
has excellent boots.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does.
What kind of tell us about these boots, Austin?
So these are Danner lights. I like them because they're very similar to what I wore in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Super comfortable. Can't tear them up. You can resole them.
Really?
And Santa, apparently Santa brought them to you.
Santa Claus did indeed bring them.
Hey, let me tell you my problem with boots like this is I really like what you're doing here in that you're using them like dress boots almost. I mean, like, they look nice. There's not a scuff on them. But you're gonna
Wow,
you're
thanks,
gonna
Clay.
walk out of here, and because you have those on, you're gonna run across a ditch, or you're gonna go do something, and you're gonna scuff them up, and then you've built this idea in your head that these are the boots I wear, like these are like my church boots. But then
Like
they're
Brent's
beat
church
up in
overalls.
no time because they're not church boots. It messes with my head
Well-
because I can't keep a pair of boots nice. I mean, it's a problem.
I just heard you say your shoes make you do things.
Yeah, they do, and I
They
don't wear
inspire
Crocs.
you?
I got Crocs I got Crocs from my children.
Your kids listen to this podcast.
I know, and I love them. I love my children.
They were inspired by you.
And I will wear those
Brent.
Crocs at different
They should
times,
be.
but I will not wear them when my family's honor is at stake.
Well, let me tell you
I've
something.
never seen them wear them.
I don't-
We're
Are
a
you
month
talking
out.
about like the fight?
Yeah.
That happen often?
Are they Crocs?
Like if
Or are
you're
they
having
my
a duel in the front yard.
No, I firmly.
Here down
Hey,
here
listen,
in Arkansas,
okay.
we have
Man,
we're an
I'm
ancient
totally.
civilization.
There was, sometimes you're around someone and they say something that you're like, that's what I've been trying to say my whole life, and you just take it from them. Ron Bain, the Hunting Dog Podcast, he says you should never not wear shoes that you couldn't protect your family in a volcano.
Why couldn't you?
What?
In a
Pause.
volcano.
When have you? Why is the volcano relevant?
Volcano is a metaphor. I mean, a volcano.
Ask the folks. in
If you're a
Pompeii.
human,
I would like
If
a
you're human,
metaphor
there
that
is-
is more culturally relevant.
well, I get it though. When you say that, it's like, yeah, you don't want to be wearing flip flops. You want to be wearing these.
Steel toe
I'm
boots.
wearing leather boots.
Okay,
So, Austin, I like your boots. That's all we're
Thank
trying
you.
to say.
Thank you.
that's a really
I still think they
backwards
burn.
way of saying.
And you're not
Our-
recording
our
this, are you?
other,
Austin,
our
did you
other,
anticipate this was going to start off this way?
I knew it was going to be something similar. I
yeah.
didn't know that anything about my boots, but something meandering and humorous.
What's
No.
Clay wearing?
Oh,
Those are Crocs.
photo evidence.
Yeah, those are
No.
Crocs.
Are
Let me
those
see.
name brand or are those mock Crocs?
That
See,
was
Crocs.
that's
Mock
that's
Crocs.
that's kind of
doesn't
like
count.
the paparazzi.
Yeah, that
like
was a
snipping out.
paparazzi shot. So, our other mystery guests that we're very honored to have, Luke Naylor, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, waterfowl biologist. Luke
Correct.
was on the main Bear Grease podcast last week.
Yep.
I told him he carried the weight of it.
As
It was
usual.
good.
As usual. Yep. He did great. Now, I still stand by my analogy that you being the lead guy for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, lead waterfowl guy in the duck hunting capital of the world, he is essentially like, I said Steph Curry of
I
the
think it's
Golden State
appropriate.
Warriors.
It's appropriate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, my jump shot's not that good.
Yeah.
Can't quite. I don't think that's going to work. I'm
Your
surprised.
shoes are acceptable.
You would have caught me. Typically, I'm about the only guy showing up on a WMA to change in and out of hunting boots and wearing my Chaco sandals. That's pretty much
Okay,
how
so
I
you're wearing
drive
Chacos.
to and from a hunting location. So
Yeah.
I got problems in
I
a
like it.
volcano, I guess.
Yeah.
But it works out.
You got
for
all
me.
kind of problems if you're wearing Chacos.
I'm
Well,
a
that could be
big fan
true.
of Chacos. I mean,
Lots
they're
of girls
basically
wear
the
'em.
only
Well-
shoes that I've worn.
Hey, Clay. I think there's something that we need to get out of the way with Luke
Okay.
about a certain object that falls from trees.
Uh-oh.
It's true. Yeah, I wanted to make a public apology to all my listeners from the South about the way Luke pronounced the word acorn.
Acorn.
You know what? Now stop right there. I listened to it twice. One time on the way up here, and the only thing I could get over was you saying pronouncing
Pronounce
it.
again.
Exactly.
I know. I knew it would come up. I knew it would
It
come
was
up.
there.
I didn't hear Luke
We're
say
going to give
that.
Luke a pass.
I honestly didn't remember him saying it either.
He did.
He
He
did.
said it in the truck, too, on the way here.
Yeah.
Why
Where
did,
are you
why
from,
did you
I'm
do
getting
that?
a lot of really
You're from Kansas. You're from Kansas.
tough glares right now.
Kansas,
I am, yes, I'm a native Kansan.
They don't even
Correct.
have
We don't have
in
trees.
Kansas.
Yeah, they
The
don't-
state tree is a cottonwood.
He gets a pass.
How
I
am I
thought it was
supposed
the
to know?
telephone pole.
Right. It's-
yeah,
It-
yeah.
pretty much is. So yeah, there's a few acorn bearing trees in Kansas, but not near the number there are down here. So
Yeah.
Just have some respect for where you're at. Just go ahead and call him Acorn the rest
No,
of the podcast.
he's good. He's in the 80%.
Be true to yourself.
He's
well,
in
you
the
kind of
80%.
got to go. I've been here for a while, and I can kind of you just got to kind of read the room.
Yeah.
And if it's particularly hostile, you go with acorn.
Yeah.
And you just
Yeah.
avoid the subject altogether.
Yeah. Well, no, present company accepted. You gave us some great knowledge on the podcast. So
Who
I
else?
have on my notes here.
Are you going to introduce the rest of us?
Yes, I was gonna say. So the regular crew that's here, to my right, Misty Newcomb. Great to have you, Misty.
Always good
Did
to
you
be
guys
here.
know that most of the comments we get about the Bear Grease Render are about Misty?
Yeah, because she's better than us.
Yeah, very much so. Brent Reeves, great to see you, Brent.
Great to be seen.
Josh Spillmaker.
Here. I'm glad to be
Hey,
here.
Daniel Roop couldn't be here. His mustache is excellent. I have that in my notes. What did you guys think?
First thing
seen
I
it?
thought of was Catfish Hunter.
Should we possibly give
So,
some context for why we're talking about Dan's mustache?
Go ahead.
Well, he we would not out this information because we follow HIPAA guidelines here at the Bear Grease Podcast.
I've got rabies.
We probably should talk about that later. But-
Well, Dan just couldn't be here.
yeah.
So last week, Daniel saw my mustache, and Daniel
Was that the inspiration?
no doubt. No, I mean it's not really debatable.
Has he seen your shoes?
It is. I have to say, it's the most fake-looking real mustache I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
Daniel Reeves. Go to his page.
Yes.
You'll
It's
see
true.
it. It looks great. It's fantastic. So Daniel couldn't be here, and then unfortunately Gary Newcomb couldn't be here.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, Dad couldn't be here either. So we've got a
He's
we've got a
beef
great
with
crew though.
AGFC.
Yeah.
Settle for us.
Get in line.
Hey, while we're taking care of some business here, I want two meat eater related things. So Meat Eater's coming out with a whole big waterfowl deal. You can go to themeateater.com/waterfowl and see all the stuff that they're doing. So one of my guests who on the podcast was Sean Weaver, who is Meat Eater's waterfowl guru. Sean's a cool guy. Sean's 28 years old. He puts 70,000 miles a year on a truck, which is true and has for like the last 10 years. And he travels all over the country and is just a genuine good guy. And so he came here and I interviewed him. And I thought he was so good on the podcast because he wasn't from Arkansas. Everybody else was from Arkansas, including me. And so we were establishing that Arkansas is the duck hunting capital of the world. And I was kind of playing why is it? I don't understand. And Sean, to me, kind of sealed the deal because he's got no stock in Arkansas. And I liked what he said about he just kind of gave an outsider's look into Arkansas. I say that to say Meat Eater's coming out with a new series called Duck Lore.
Oh, cool.
And it's Sean traveling all over the country hunting with people.
Nice.
And so
That'll be
it's pretty
awesome.
cool. And one of the episodes will be in Arkansas.
Good.
Maybe not with me.
Foreshadowing.
If there's not an episode in Arkansas, we got big problems.
Concur.
Because
It
this
is
is
the
the
duck
duck hunting
country.
capital of the world.
That's
right.
So
Thank
you
you.
can go to themeateater.com/waterfowl, and you can see First Light has a new waterfowl gear system coming out, and you can sign up for our newsletter. That's good. The only other thing on my Meat Eater agenda is how many of you guys know Spencer Newharth?
Yep.
You probably don't know Spencer
of
Newharth.
Spencer.
I know of him.
Okay, our guest here, Spencer Newharth, works at Meat Eater. He's
7 days
he's
November
our
fame.
hunting editorial guy.
Got a good
Good
beard
friend
also.
of mine. Yes. I had a dream the other night, and I remembered nothing about the dream other than that Spencer Newharth walks past me and I call him Beach Nut.
And you're going to make this public
What's
for
that mean?
Spencer.
Hey, Beach Nut.
You're going to release this on the
Were you
podcast.
like, hey, Beach Nut?
I just remember addressing him very seriously.
Like Mr.
as
Beach Nut?
Beach Nut, come here, something.
Right.
So I just am doing my part in to just make sure that that's what everybody calls him.
I think that's a moniker that would
Pretty
be
sure Steve Rennell is on this wagon too, as is everybody else at Meat Eater. So Beach Nut, yeah, we really
That's
appreciate
weird.
what he does for us. Okay, moving right along. It was weird. It was very weird. Okay, that's why I've made it a point. Made it a point to make this very public. Okay, moving right along. I almost lost my eye yesterday.
Yeah, let's
feel
hear
like-
that story.
I feel like I had to. I
Yeah, I
rode
haven't
with
heard
these
the
guys for
details on
like
that.
20 minutes before I told them that I wasn't like, like either
blind
sick,
in one eye. Yeah.
either Clay's got pink eye or Clay is.
You do kind of
not
look like
well.
you have pink eye.
Yeah, that's my first thought.
Great.
Great.
It's like
See, because I've got small kids, and when you got kids my age, like, oh, if your eye's red, you just assume somebody's got pink eye.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want it to be the first thing I said to you guys. No. So yesterday, I had two of my buddies from Oklahoma come up here, Alvin Grigg and Brian Ringles.
Very nice. Very
Yes.
nice guys.
They are really good guys. They ride horses. They wanted to come up and squirrel hunt on their horses, me on the mule, and we hunted yesterday. And at about 11 o'clock yesterday, I was riding to a tree. So when you're squirrel hunting on mules, part of the deal is that you can get to the tree quick. So the dog's tree and the squirrel, especially this time of year, they're going in dens really quickly usually. So the quicker you can get there, the better. And going to a tree, and I mean, just like we've done for lots of miles riding through thick forest, you just kind of put up your arms and just go, and stuff's brushing across you, and and I just took a stick. I didn't see it happen. I don't know how big it was, but
strange. It was in your eye and you didn't see it.
Yeah, I just took a stick in my right eye, and for a minute there, I really thought, I'm going to open this eye and I'm going to see black. I was envisioning what I'd look like with a glass eye, and like what I was going to put in the
Put a
glass
bear
eye.
track right.
That's actually,
bear
I,
track right in the middle.
I wish I would have thought about that because I was just picturing
Because you
walking
wouldn't
around
have taken
everywhere.
them to the hospital?
No, I was picturing walking around with them with a patch. I also had visions, and because Clay is so descriptive in text message, I'm shaking my head no. He's like, had issue with my eye, heading to the doctor, may need a ride. And my response is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being blindness, where are we at? And that,
What did he text back?
he didn't text back.
You never saw
I
it.
mean, we talked on the phone.
I
we
gave
talked,
you a number.
You didn't. On the phone, you did. But when I talked to him on the phone, I was a little concerned, to be honest, because you can usually hear it in Clay's voice that everything's all right.
Right.
And it's usually a good story or whatever. And I couldn't hear that when I just got on the phone. Because like, well, I mean, it might be hard for him to text if, in fact, we are at 10 blindness.
Right.
And so I just picked up the phone and called him and said, what's going on? And I could tell he wasn't quite sure.
Well,
I
eye
was a little
injuries
worried.
hurt like heck. And at first, I just thought it would just kind of go away, and so we just kept hunting, and I just kind of was squinting, and it was watering. And about 4 hours later, it was worse than when it happened, And so we had to call off the hunt, and I just was like, man, I can't even see out of either eye, because when you squinch up this eye so hard, this eye started watering too, and it was pretty painful. Went to the eye doctor, and I took off a chunk out of my cornea.
Nice.
And
That makes me hungry.
he said if it had been 2 millimeters further, as I'm sitting right
East.
now to the west,
Yeah.
he said it would have caused permanent damage. If that happens on your pupil, like it's basically, I mean, from what I could tell, like not
No
fixable.
good. Yeah.
But it's no big deal.
Will it grow back?
It's almost already healed.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
But if I hadn't gone to the doctor, he said what happens is it's when you get an eye injury, it abrades your eye,
Uh-huh.
and then when you blink, it tears the scab off your eye.
Every time you blink.
Like
So what
it
did they do?
remains-
Take a Dremel? And
They put
clean it
a
out?
contact lens, like a medicated contact lens, over it.
Interesting.
and then
Full of ivermectin.
So that when it was like,
but yeah, to get rid of the worms. No, but it.
Brent stays on ivermectin.
For a pink eye.
It just
But
hurt.
your eye heals very quickly, and I'm serious. Like right now, I feel perfectly fine.
That's crazy.
And yesterday I could hardly see out of it. So, yeah.
Miracles of modern
Blindness.
science, folks.
Well, what my buddy Alvin said is he said we take for granted how often stuff just goes normal.
Yeah.
Like you go squirrel hunting and you don't get hurt, and you come home and
Yeah.
you just think that's normal. You know?
Yeah.
It's like no. So anyway,
Lost another tooth today.
yeah, yeah. Austin, man, so you've been at the Game and Fish now since July
July 1st.
1st. So
Yes, sir.
a little over 6 months.
That's right.
So give us a little the walkthrough of your career and kind
Sure.
of where you've been and how you got here.
Grew up in a small town in Lonoke County. Left in 2004 to go to college. Dad was an engine builder. Mom became a nurse after she put her kids through college. But anyways, went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. Then went to law school at the University of South Carolina.
Okay.
And then took
So start taking notes here. He's a lawyer.
Yep.
Okay, that's one finger.
check. Yeah.
Okay.
Then took a commission in the United States Marine Corps in 2010.
He's a Marine, number 2.
Yep.
Check.
And served on active duty in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Got out in 2019. Came home, was the chief of staff for the Arkansas Department of Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
Did that for about 18 months, and then I started at Game and Fish in July.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
okay.
So in the Marines, you were a lawyer for the Marines?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
So my first 3 years, I did nothing but basically prosecute cases.
oh,
What
can we talk
kind
about
of
that?
cases? I mean, like what I don't understand why are the Marines defending themselves?
Yeah.
Or
So,
is it stuff that
military
happens
court.
inside the Marines?
well, so the Marine Corps is a cross section of society, right? So it's a very interesting cross section of society. But we have Marines that break the law, and
Are you serious?
yes, actually, yes. And in the Marine Corps, we have the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which 80% of it is very similar to what we would see in civilian jurisdictions. But we hold them accountable. And there's a Marine Corps jury, Marine Corps judge, Marine Corps prosecutor,
Okay.
Marine Corps defense counsel. And it's very similar to what you would see out in town.
Okay. So it's like its own internal.
Own criminal justice system.
Wow. So you were just prosecuting just regular stuff. It wasn't
Yes. You name it. All
Got it.
over the place.
like okay.
Yep.
For 9 years.
Is the jury selected at random like they are, except for
Yes.
within a smaller
Yes.
crowd?
Now, mostly at random. There's some guidelines on if you're a certain rank,
Okay.
there can't be anybody of junior rank on the panel.
Oh, okay.
And there has to be a certain officer to enlisted ratio. So we can't just reach into a hat and
okay.
pull people out.
Wow.
But then we get this big panel, and then we go through the voir dire process where each side, tries to kick people off if they think they'll be unfair.
Wow.
Interesting.
But that's very similar to what happens out in town. So
Yeah.
I did that for 3 years, and then went to Afghanistan, did some operational stuff over there, and then came back and went to the Hill for 3 years.
So in Afghanistan, you were like on the ground.
I was on the ground still as a lawyer, but doing what we call operational law, which is, use of force, drone strikes, rules of engagement, vetting, targeting packages, stuff like that.
Wow. And then okay, so
And I tried to get out of the Marine Corps after Afghanistan, but that really just wasn't a marketable skill to law firms.
really,
Yeah.
seems like it would be.
That's all right.
And you're married and have 3 kids.
Married and have 3 kids,
Excellent.
8,
Awesome,
5,
man.
and 3.
And hey, I just want to say this because this was news to me. The director of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, that position is a hired position. It's not an appointed position. And
That's right.
that's good intel to know.
Yep.
I mean, because for someone who's lived in this state his whole life, I could not have told you that. I knew that the commission was governor
appointed by the governor.
Right. And I just, kind of lumped all the leadership together in some way. But the director of the agency, I mean,
It's hard.
You applied for the job and got hired.
That's right.
That's good.
And when we were doing our GTR public meetings, I don't want to spoil anything, but someone would always ask me, they were like, so you're 35 years old. How exactly did you get to be the director of the Arkansas Game and Fish? And I was telling them the same thing. I said, do you really want to know? They're like, yeah, of course.
Give us the inside.
Yeah. And I tell them, I'm like, I went online. I Googled the headhunter. I found his website and I sent him my cover letter and my resume. And they said, well, did you know any of the commissioners? I was like, yeah, I knew one. And we had lunch. And
there was his inroad.
And we had lunch and he told me not to apply. So, yeah, it's hired.
That's great, man.
So, Austin, did you grow up hunting?
I did. Mostly duck hunting. A little bit of deer hunting, but mostly wing shooting, dove and ducks.
Hunting public land in Arkansas, mainly.
Public land in Arkansas. We had we had some leases every now and then if we could find them. And yeah.
Let me ask something. Brent, you're not a hillbilly. You are a
Flatlander.
So is Austin also a flatlander?
He
Absolutely.
Okay. It's helpful. I just think it's helpful to categorize
just so
everybody
you
in the
know.
room.
People that tightly in the room.
Just so you know, if you call me a hillbilly or him a hillbilly, now that there's two of us here, you better have the right shoes on.
Crocs. Mud boots.
I've had to threaten him to quit calling me a hillbilly.
Because Clay throws the
difficult.
term
Well,
around
right.
kind of loosely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Luke, we got into a little bit of your history on the main podcast, but you've been with the Game and Fish since 2006.
Correct. Yep. Coming
And,
up on 15 years.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to undergrad at Kansas State and then graduate school at University of California at Davis.
Oh, yeah.
So spent some time out there. So, yeah, grew up in Kansas and just my wife and I went west for graduate school for a few years and then decided to come back east, as the California people say. Once you cross the Sierra Nevada, you're back east.
Okay.
East of Reno is back east. California.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anywhere out here.
I like what you said there because directional descriptors are totally based on your perception of where you're at because Austin was asking me about Gerstocker a minute ago. He saw a painting that we had hanging that was a guy fighting a bear with a knife.
In Crocs.
He was not wearing Crocs. And so the book that story is in is called Wild Sports in the Far West, right here.
Yeah.
There was a time when Arkansas was the Far West.
Oh, yeah.
That is neither here nor there. But so
Here.
Luke
It is
was
here.
hunting public land this morning when you got the invite to come here.
I was.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
I was driving back from a little morning in Biomeda.
how
Yeah.
much do you think participation inside of the places that you're regulating helps you manage?
A lot. Like,
totally
I don't know how much. I don't know how you could do this job if you don't spend time in those places. I have the opportunity to speak to some college courses, wildlife classes, conservation classes, whatever the name may be, and I've kind of got a standard presentation I give and tweak from year to year, and that's been some of my. I've been kind of hanging on that advice the last few times when I talk to students. I said I think I worded something like you got to walk where you want to work. And that was instilled in me early on. I was a public land hunter, growing up in Kansas. A lot of duck hunting, quail and pheasant, of course. Had an uncle that had a farm for years out west of Wichita, and had some awesome opportunities there with family over the years. But 90% public land, and that just instills a totally different perspective. And I don't know how I could relate to anyone else, do anything, have any credibility really with all the stuff we're talking about with GTRs if I didn't actually live it myself.
Yeah.
I like to just get out, and I went out and just took a walk in the woods by myself this morning, and may go out tomorrow morning with some friends. We'll see. But it's refreshing to do that at least once, kind of by myself every year, and just go kind of wander around. And there's no pressure. No strings attached to anything. Just go out and see what's going on. So
yeah, again, coming into this topic and this world, not knowing a lot about it, which is to me interesting that you can live in a state like Arkansas and be as active in the hunting space as a bunch of us are over here and know nothing about duck hunting. But when you told me that you didn't, everybody hunts private land sometimes, but you were like, man, I pretty much hunt public land in Arkansas. And I mean, you're the guy putting a lot of your fingerprints on what's going on around here. I just thought that did give you a lot of credibility,
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, you got to walk a mile in the shoes, right? So it's, or I guess most people don't walk like I do, but a lot of people are maybe in a boat, something like that.
Put a mile in another man's Crocs.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, I might as well have been in Croc today. My waders were leaking, so it wouldn't have made any difference. But yeah, it's you got to get out there and experience it, just like other folks do. I do it. It's been turkey hunting here, deer hunting here. It's all public land.
Yeah,
and sure, I'm not afraid to go out and ask permission to snow goose hunt or go out and somebody invites me to a place. I'll do that, but that's a couple times a year versus to all the other compared to all the other trips I do on public land. So
yeah,
keeps you kind of grounded on what's really going on out there.
Sure,
and, a little more connected.
How feasible is it really to hunt ducks and all that on public land in Arkansas?
Very. It is. Most people, I guess I'll start out by putting in perspective from somebody outside Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
Most folks coming from outside Arkansas come here and have a duck hunt. Mm-hmm. And we've got about 45,000 people every year come from out of state to hunt ducks in Arkansas. And about 85% of those are on private land, but about 15% on public land. Invariably, those folks that come from out of state to duck hunt on public land, typically, and I've talked to a bunch of them over the years, that one day in Arkansas, they will see more ducks than they see in an entire season of hunting ducks somewhere else. Big states for us, out-of-state hunters, or Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, of course, coming across in Memphis a lot. But it's to a person. They say that this is, one day in the woods here when the water's in and this time of year, and they'll see more ducks than they'll see in a couple seasons sometimes. So it's just different. The intensity here is extremely high. Okay. The pressure is high. You can't ignore it and pretend like it's some sort of a wilderness experience to go duck hunting on public land in Arkansas.
Okay.
Because you're not typically going to find a lot of solitude. I found relative solitude this morning, which means there's somebody. I think Clay was asking me how close somebody was, and a few hundred yards, and you can barely hear their duck call. That's kind of solitude on public land in Arkansas, but it works, and I think the folks can take off. Where I'm hunting, you just get a pair of cheap hip boots and a duck call and go walking. I didn't even have a decoy with me today.
Really?
And you just walk in and kind of the old timer way of doing things. You just kick the water, ducks key in on that. The being in the woods, ducks really key in on the moving water, the splashes, and the sound, the call. So they're kind of hardwired to look for that.
Did you take any ducks this morning?
I shot two ducks. I should the two that came in and did it right like I like to shoot them. So they
mallards?
had to be fully committed. Yeah.
Were they mallards?
Yeah.
Okay,
they were great.
Well, he
mallards.
said he killed ducks, so they must be mallards.
That's what.
Right. That's synonymous in Arkansas.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, compare this right here. What he's talking about doing on public land. How many vehicles were in the parking lot this morning?
There's usually when it's like it is now, there'll be 50 to 75, sometimes over 100 at our major access points.
Okay, and that's and in the area you were hunting Biomeda, I assume.
It's probably 20,000 acres of water right now because we're on a major flood.
20,000 acres, 50 to 70 vehicles. Is that what you said?
Yep.
What would you do if you pulled up?
You can put 6 hillbillies in one truck.
What would you do if you pulled up to a trailhead in Montana where there was 1 million acres in front of you and there was 50 vehicles there?
You'd go somewhere
You
else.
turn around and go back home.
Yeah.
But you can do that here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's pretty cool.
Why?
The question, why? Because you can do just like what Luke did. You can get 250 yards away from somebody.
You can hunt
and you can do that.
And still be successful.
Absolutely, you can. And that's a big difference. And I just thought about how different that was than if you and I had pulled up somewhere with a trailhead that had 50 vehicles that we wouldn't even stop.
Yeah,
we'd just keep going, and we would be walking, and he was walking.
Yeah,
on a much smaller area, and he had a space to do it.
Brent, tell us about your duck hunting history. You used to be a guide.
My brother and I guided for the probably 26 years, I guess. I think is what I figured it up. And I've been hunting. I killed my first greenhead when I was 12, I think. And I can remember it just like it happened this morning. And 12 years when I was 12, that was a few years ago.
1930.
Yeah, it was right after the Great War. And
Spanish American.
Yeah, that's where I learned to speak Spanish. I got caught. But we guided at Raydale. We had a camp. We bought a camp over at Raydale, right on the Arkansas River. We were 10 minutes from Buckingham Flats, which is
Now, why can we talk about all this public land and it's okay to be specific?
Or, I mean, it just is. I mean, that's it.
But I mean, it's a serious question because
Well, I don't guess I understand.
Can we?
'Cause Clay's so
like,
secretive
if you,
about-
Typically,
Oh.
we don't use names of stuff.
Well, in Biomeda, I mean, if you're duck hunting on public land in Arkansas, in that part of Arkansas, it's Biomeda.
Right.
Or if it's northeast Arkansas, it's Black River or Black Swamp or
So
Arkansas.
we're comfortable saying that.
At Biomeda.
That's just a serious question.
Yeah, Biomeda's
Because if
it.
you ever talk about the places I hunt, this
I'm going to tell it
casually,
right now.
It's over.
I'm going to quit pointing your finger at me. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, if y'all would ask me like a name of a road or a nearest town where I turkey hunt, I'd stone face. Like, I'm not,
I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
not telling you a thing.
1, 2,
What?
3, any street.
This
And
picture.
you've already gone too far already with me.
I don't
We'd
turkey
say just I turkey hunt in the eastern deciduous forest.
This
Right.
photograph that I brought, my son wanted to come to a render, but he couldn't come today. He was 12, I think, when I took this picture. This was on the blue line in Biomeda.
Yep.
Luke may have heard of that.
That's
before.
where.
It was,
Okay, now there's some.
That's where Luke hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that,
Yep.
is that a
Luke
joke?
was
or are we
standing
being
right
serious?
No,
And this-
it
Is
was
that
popular
Luke in the
today.
background?
No,
I don't think I was lurking back there.
that's my brother back there. But we had this dog for 13 years that's in this photograph with him. But that photograph says so much to me. And one reason I brought it today to show it was just for y'all to look at this was on the last podcast you talked about driving by. Luke, you talked about your dad said he drove by and every other house had a black dog and a boat in the driveway. Well, this was my life right here for almost 30 years. It was I deer hunted some for something to do until duck season opened up. I mean that whole community of people that I was around, that's what they did. Everything else was just to keep you out of jail long enough for duck season to open up, and then for the next 60, 70, 90 days, whatever it was going to be, that's what we did every day. And it was the hardest job I ever had outside of law enforcement, the hardest thing I ever done and the most fun. I made the best friends. And you talked about people coming from out of state. We had clients from all over that hunted with us, from Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Like the biggest, vast majority of them come from there. And I remember one day we took a guy from Pennsylvania. He's from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. We took him into Buckingham Flats, and we went in there, and 9:30, 10 o'clock, ducks just shut off. It was over with. And there was probably 4 or 5 of us in there. I'd say there was 4 of us in there. And we liked like 2 ducks having a limit for everybody. So we start picking up decoys, and we're walking out, and the guy, he's passed away now, but the guy from Pennsylvania was walking right beside me, and I said, Mr. Roberts, I'm sorry it wasn't any better than it was today. And he said, what? I said, I'm sorry it wasn't any better than that, because normally 10 o'clock you're waking up from a nap, getting ready to get something to eat because you've already limited out several hours before. And he reached and grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and turned me around. I thought he was fixing to hit me. He said, boy, you don't realize what y'all have here. He said, I saw more ducks this morning than I have seen in 2 years at home.
Wow.
And he said, and I killed more ducks this morning than I have over the last 2 years at home. He said, you got something special here. And I would say that up until that point, I would always apologize to clients if we didn't kill a full limit. I never said it again after that because he was right.
Yeah.
And it was, this would have been 98 or 99. And you could go and you could put 250, 300 ducks in a hole in the woods right on top of you. I had them so close they were blown, that their wingtips would touch you on the arm. My brother caught a mallard hen one time.
You better not say that. The director's here.
Oh, they're gonna have to catch him.
He let him go.
He caught a mallard hen come in.
I thought you were going to say, my brother once killed a duck with an addle.
No, just fluttering by, looking for a place to light, and he reached out and grabbed it by the neck, and he said,
Oh, wow.
That duck went up his arm like a roasting ear. He said that he was clawing and biting, and he turned it loose. He said, but it was. I mean, you just get them in that close, and that's not.
What's the most you ever just estimated? And we know your estimation is going to be 30% higher than the truth.
Well, I'll take 30.
What's the most you think ever landed in a set of decoys or came in?
In Buckingham Flats, we had 2 guys from Memphis. We went in there on a Tuesday morning, and
coon hunters.
We were the only folks in there. There's one vehicle in that parking lot on a Tuesday morning. This was in about 1994, 93 or 94. And if it was one duck, it was 700-800. I was going to say 1,000, but you wasn't going to believe it. So
he already did the reduction.
Yeah,
at least 100.
They started.
Plus or minus 400.
We started working ducks, and 50 ducks became.
I don't even know
100.
really what 800 ducks would look like. Luke, have you ever experienced anything like that?
Most people don't. No, yeah, not to that scale, but been fortunate to been on some good hunts with some good friends and see that start to happen. It's strange what happens there. It's something so fascinating about hunting in the timber that it does. As Brent started to describe, they kind of just
they come from everywhere.
I mean, there's just this cascade effect, where they start coming. And I watched a few of them do it this morning, and I was about ready to leave, and a few ducks came in. They finally just found a spot, and they broke through the trees away from me and away from this other group. Just kind of started settling in, and half a dozen of them started it, and really all it takes is a few to start the train.
Right.
And I mean, just quickly, there's probably 60, 70 ducks just pulled right in behind them. So if there's enough ducks around, it can build into the hundreds like that. If the key is being patient enough to let it happen.
And they started lighting like 100 yards away.
Oh, okay. They kind of
and it was just like a rolling carpet. They just started just rolling right.
Have you ever seen anything like that, Austin?
Sure. Yeah.
Big groups like that?
Yep. Hunting the White River bottoms one time, and we had a group of 6 guys, and one group came in about 3 minutes after shooting time, and we limited out in one
volley,
one group of ducks.
Yeah, that's nice.
Now, how would that be? You'd had to have reloaded?
No.
But how would you limit out? I mean, I'm not a game warden or anything, but if you only got 3 shells and the limit's 4, how do you limit out?
Because the ducks are that close and there's that many of them together.
For real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes if it gets right, you got to be careful. One of the first times I had,
I'm no mathematician, but
you better be.
I had my dad down here one of the first times. We were in Government Cypress several years back, 10 plus years ago, and they finally started coming in. They did it. They broke through, and if things are going right, and I'm sound kind of arrogant, I guess, but if you're shooting them right, which means they're down inside the trees, they're not flying, skimming the treetops and all that.
Yeah,
each his own. That it's legal to make your own decisions, but really shooting is secondary. Like if ducks are doing it right in the woods, shooting them is kind of an afterthought. Yeah, because it gets to the point where they're in so close, and there can be so many of them, and they really they're acrobats. But getting that many ducks up out of the woods and out of gun range, a man can operate a gun much quicker than they can get out.
Yeah,
really.
It really, once it happens like that, it really is. You're kind of like, okay, I guess we're going to shoot them now.
You start at the top, and you work as they come up. You just keep working the ducks.
Now that's after they've landed.
Yeah,
and
after they come
back
in,
up.
When the shooting starts, you start high, and then the duck as they work up, you take them as they're going out.
It could be the ducks that are still coming in, talking about that train starting, and a bunch of them on the water, they're just going to keep coming. You shoot the ones here, and then the other ones get up, and you're just basically bang, bang, bang.
It's a safety thing, too.
It is, yeah. They're easy shots as far as wing shooting.
Yep. Y'all think y'all shot 20 gauges?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was my guide gun, was an over and under 20.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So do you, like, as a duck hunter, when you're thinking about your duck hunting career, is that like killing a 10-point buck, limit out and limiting out in 1 minute?
So Luke
How does that give me a scale here?
Luke and I were talking about that on the way up here. I think I'm in the minority here, but I would much rather kill a few ducks short of my limit, but have a longer hunt. I mean,
Okay.
I love being able to see those blue notches on their wings in the sunlight, and I love being able to see that neon emerald green head in the sunlight. Sure, it's awesome to limit out really quickly, but I would much rather string that over a few hours.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We
And
used to
I'm the
tell,
same way.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really about seeing them.
Yeah.
If I can shoot some ducks, great. But I know if I've shot some ducks, that means I saw a lot of ducks.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of ducks close. That's way more important at the end of the day.
Seeing them and
Yeah.
talking to them.
Yeah. That communication you have through calling.
Yeah.
we always
Let me
told
shush this
clients,
down. Hold on.
Hey,
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. I don't know if you stopped in at an O'Reilly lately, but I use one because we have one right not too far from my house. People there are super helpful. I don't care if I'm getting boat batteries, car parts, whatever. Love those guys. They got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you don't have to worry if you're in a jam. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free, in or out of your car. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find just the right battery for your vehicle. If you need your windshield wipers replaced, a brake light fixed, quick service, they'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. Whether you are a car aficionado or an auto novice, you will find the employees at O'Reilly Auto Parts to be knowledgeable, helpful, and best of all, friendly. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things do-it-yourself auto. You can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/meateater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/meateater.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time: Seafoam motor treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that Seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, Seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems. Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who's used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more. Whitetail Institute launched the food plot revolution in 1988 with a concentration on research and real-world testing of forage products specifically for whitetail deer. Whitetail Institute's research and development team of agronomy experts provide effective, personalized service. I've been using Imperial whitetail clover for a long time in a food plot back behind my house. In 2007, I killed the biggest buck of my life over an Imperial whitetail clover small quarter-acre food plot. Imperial whitetail clover is the only clover scientifically developed through years of selective breeding. Clover Extreme genetic stability provides extreme cold tolerance, disease, and drought tolerance. It really does. Clover is coated with Whitetail Institute's Rain Bond, a polymer coating added for enhanced seedling survivability. They have an exclusive offer for Bear Grease listeners, 15% off Imperial Clover when you use the code BEAR at whitetailinstitute.com. That's whitetailinstitute.com and use code BEAR for 15% off.
we would tell clients we can get this over with quick. At one point there was a point system where, males and females, drakes and hens were a different point value, and you went up to 100, and hens were 100. If you killed a hen, whoever killed that hen, that was their limit. So we would tell during and during that time, and even after, if we got if there was close on hens, we'd say no. We're shutting it down before we got a limit because we weren't going to walk out of there over the limit of ducks. So we would always tell them, now boys, we can get this done quick, or we can sit here and let the sun come up and we can shoot the boy ducks, and see a show from that time on. And everybody, to a man, was we want to stay here and we want to watch it because it's
a show.
And so then
It's
you
something
try to shoot the Drake mallards.
just pick out the boys. Yeah,
Boy, that's harder to do.
It's not. Every band I ever killed, except for one, I saw it on the duck's leg when I shot him.
We're kind of different duck hunters, I'm kind
Well,
of
here's the deal. Look,
know-
correct me, Austin. Tell me, there's a difference between a man that hunts ducks and a duck hunter. Am I right?
That's true. Well, in all my experience,
Yeah, you got to be careful how far you take that. Before you offend somebody unnecessarily.
Well, I ain't worried about offending Clay.
well, I'm a pretty serious duck hunter, and I pretty much just hunt, the timber.
But these guys will tell
Right.
you, it's amazing what you can see if you just look. It was always, and we would tell new hunters, pick out one duck. There's going to be there may be 50 come in, but you can't shoot them all. You got to find one. And then being guides, we would always let the clients shoot first, start shooting. They get their chance, and we'd shoot ours, and then we'd work them
How
through.
does that work? And I'm not saying that's bad, but why does the guide get to shoot?
Why does he get to shoot?
Yeah.
Well, I'm out there hunting too. I like to shoot them.
But
there was
I guess
times-
in a wing, you're not taking away anything from anybody by the
No.
guide. Because usually in a guided situation, the guide's not hunting too. But that's common practice.
Sure
Would
it
you say
is.
that's pretty
Yep.
common?
And there was a lot
and it
of
gives you an extra limit.
for the picture.
Bingo.
Okay, it gotcha.
So
Gives you an extra limit.
yes,
Yeah.
You're taking novice hunters too. It's nice to have. I took some out just last week, and I had my gun with me. No intention of shooting 1st at all, but had to go. Cripple goes off. Something you got to have somebody experienced that kind
Right.
of knows how to take care of things. And hunting with novices, and you got a dog, for example. You tell everybody that, hey, once that dog's out, everybody else
Put
keeps
your
their,
gun up.
nobody else shoots. Like I'm going to shoot because I know what the dog's doing. So it's important a lot of times to have a guide or have the more knowledgeable hunter, more experienced hunter to be ready to help out with some situations like that. And it's a few more ducks for the picture too.
right.
Yeah, a few more ducks for the picture.
Fill the log.
Put
up.
all the mallards up front.
Do you feel like this is all inside baseball, Josh?
No, I have intentionally never duck hunted
That's
On
unfortunate.
purpose.
on purpose because I have a bit of an obsessive personality, and I know that first. I love to fly fish. I mean, I get obsessed with fly fishing. Actually, tell you guys, I got my first trout fishing guide gig this weekend.
Good for you.
Oh, wow.
Guiding for some guys.
Good
I
for you.
bought
Really?
my guide license.
all
Oh,
yeah.
$25.
All
of it.
$25 for my guide license.
Clarification. Yeah.
Everybody's really
so
clarifying how they
I'm
follow the
obsessed.
rules.
Right. Yeah, that's nice.
I'm obsessive about gear and about fly fishing and tying and all that kind of stuff. I know the first time I go duck hunting, it's going to be like,
You're gonna like
I'm
it.
doing this.
That's
It
the
seems like
same-
something you
My brother-in-law Scott Anderson duck hunts over in around the Tulsa area a lot, and he's always wanting me to go. And I'm like, I've never just been too gung ho about it because of that reason. So
Mhm.
Yeah, be careful.
Okay, talking directly about the podcast. This is what we usually do. What was your favorite part that stood out to you?
You asking me?
Anybody can start. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll tell you, it has been my favorite of all the ones.
he actually said this yesterday,
It's
which
been-
surprised me.
It's been my favorite since even Bear Hunting Magazine when we first started. It's been because there was everyone that talked on there. I could relate to everything somebody was saying. It was from Jimbo to the whole thing, the biology and the area, because these were questions that clients were asking me. I had
Mhm.
people from New Jersey. They wanted to know. Some of them had never seen stars at night. They would stand outside in front of the camp in Raydale on the bank of the Arkansas River and look up at the stars and be amazed. And it was just one question after another. What kind of tree is this? Why do ducks come down here? The things that you addressed in that thing. And it was from me lying to them and telling them that a pit cotton field was the remnants of where they raised grits at, that I never corrected that. But to
Wow.
actually tell them the truth about things that I could actually answer. But all of those things were just an intrinsic part of their experience. And it made me realize, like the guy that snatched me out of my waders there from Pennsylvania, of what we had, and what we have and what we were able to do, that those guys were just going to be able to see for like 3 days until the next year. From start to finish.
It's nostalgic for
I
you.
loved it. Yeah, man. Brought back a million memories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was one thing.
I listened to it the second time when it actually came out,
Yeah.
and I thought, man, I bet I've offended a bunch of people.
Well,
Did I?
here's what. Here's
You
what.
don't think so?
This was the only thing
Okay.
that garnered my attention, other than you saying pronunciation, was
I don't
it
know
was
how to
the
pronounce
first
the word.
the
very good.
first duck hunting podcast, and as far as I know, I'm the first duck guide you ever knew, and my reference was cornbread, which was really kind
Yeah.
of good anyway.
Well,
Cornbread trumps everything.
got called out for your love of cornbread, which is true.
No shame in that.
No,
That's right.
I loved it. I've listened to every single one of the Bear Grease podcast and Bear Grease renders, except for the most recent render.
Okay.
Way to go, Austin.
Yeah.
He's
Appreciate
on the
that.
train,
Yeah.
man.
No,
Nice.
I had some special perspective on it, not because I worked for Game of Fish, but because I grew up Arkansas duck hunting,
Right.
and then I left it
Mm.
and I did it in South Carolina, did it in Virginia.
Was it different?
Oh my
The look of disgust on his face.
Where to begin?
But I tell people it was so much different, but it made me such a better hunter. Not just because I appreciated it, but because I had to pay attention to so many more variables.
Sure.
When you're hunting, public land off the Potomac River with, you got to worry about tides. You've got to worry about like when the temperature falls into single digits, big water, just a million different variables. And I had my boat inside my garage out there one winter, and my dad came out there. We were standing in the garage talking, and he looked in my boat and said, "Son, why in the world do you have bluebill decoys?"
Bluebill decoy.
You have shamed the family.
It's like wearing Crocs.
Forget the Crocs.
That's worse than Crocs.
Yeah.
Much worse.
And he, I was like, "Well, Dad, that's just what we have out here."
He's like,
And-
why even go?
Now,
Right.
what is the bluebill decoy?
So a bluebill is a type of duck.
Okay.
It's a diver, not a dabbling duck.
Oh.
And
Not a
Luke's
real
going to
duck.
correct me if I get anything wrong here. It's a fun bird to chase. They fly very erratically, so they're fun to shoot, but they're not quite as tasty and not near as pretty as a mallard.
Okay. I mean, the bluebill kind of sounds nice to me.
It's not.
But I'm more of a mallard guy.
Right.
Always have been.
Always have been.
Since last week.
I mounted the one mallard I've ever killed.
So I loved it from that perspective. And then the second thing that I really liked about it was the outro. Your description of it's a good thing when North American hunters love a critter
Yeah.
so much
Yep.
that they chase it for its feathers, its fur, or its meat. Because we'll do
Yep.
whatever we take to try to preserve that. And as I've kind of approached the game of fish as an outsider, but as a lifelong beneficiary of it, I'm very focused on trying to restore that connection between consumption and sportsmanship. So
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that statement is so true. And I mean, that's really the message that we're trying to send to the broader world is that, man, the best thing that could happen if you were a game species is that guys like this would sit around a podcast, one beautiful lady, would
Mustacheless lady.
would talk about hunting that species.
It came up in the last render.
Yeah, it's inside baseball again.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the best thing that could happen because where an animal has cultural value, and see, these are the things that I think need to be on all of our tongues, just to intuitively be able to say it. I want my kids to be able to say this: is that where an animal has cultural value, it's protected and its habitat is protected. And when you can't hunt something, when the common man has no incentive because he cannot partake of that resource, he has no incentive to protect that. And I mean, that's the North American model, is that we've given people, the common man, incentive to want to protect wildlife. And we've built this culture, this hunting culture, into our families. And North America, oddly enough, has the most big game animals of anywhere on the planet, and the strongest, most robust hunting culture of anywhere on the planet. They hunt other places, but they do not.
Fishing.
And fishing.
We got our slot limits that we observe on the White River.
Exactly.
So Brent, would you say, in light of Clay's remark, that the mallard is valued culturally in Southeast Arkansas?
Yes, I would say. I would say it'd be Jesus and then the mallard duck.
Pretty
And
close.
no, it's not even close, but the mallard duck's the next one on the rung.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, I thought that was an interesting question because it's it's like there's no question. I mean, like you guys that are in it deep, that never, I mean, has it ever crossed your mind that why are we targeting this animal? So why is this one so special? I mean, these guys, they're all looking at me like I'm crazy. They're like,
I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
It's just ingrained.
It just is.
That's interesting because that's why I wanted to talk about it. And I thought that was a cool section of the podcast.
Mhm.
And it answered my questions because there's always functionality. There's always function behind something that seems just totally cultural. You know, they're the vocal duck. They're the biggest duck. They're a meat duck. They're the most widely geographically distributed duck. So it's a no-brainer once you understand these pieces of science behind it, you know, that's like, the king of ducks, man.
Yeah.
The mallard duck.
But
Makes a lot of sense.
There is a cultural connection. I mean, we just kind of denigrated bluebills here for a second. But if you,
bluebills.
you know, if you go out like the legendary, and people here again, they kind of like I might get struck by lightning. But you know, waterfowl hunting didn't start in Arkansas. I mean, just
What?
Yep.
yeah, right. So, but you think
We're
about
going
the
to talk when we get back.
I know. There'll be. I'll have my letter on your desk in the morning.
Yeah.
But but you think about, you know, the diving ducks, canvasback, scaup, bluebills, you know, that decoy carving. That's an East Coast tradition and Great Lakes tradition built around totally different species, largely different life histories, different behaviors, different ways of pursuing them. It's all duck hunting, but much different techniques used. You know, my time out 6 years out in California in the Central Valley where the northern pintail is king.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating watching that. When I was out there, it was kind of during this transition phase where pintail populations were declining continentally. Bag limits were declining. So it went from back in the days where Brent mentioned the point system. Pintails were a bonus duck in the 70s in California, which meant you could shoot 10 of them per day. And it built this whole culture of managing habitat for pintails, which is a different structure. It's wide open, huge. You know, I hunted one time out there with a friend over 3,000 decoys, and just these, just wide open water, like 4 to 6 inch deep, wide open. And as pintail limits dropped, people started managing for mallards. And so now people in California are managing much, much more for mallards than they did in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s because kind of the king duck sort of switched based on, regulations, kind of apparent population size, and kind of the availability to have that harvest opportunity. And so it's kind of we have these regional differences in what duck is important. But as we talked about on the podcast, I mean, it's just, there's just no doubt who's king here. And it's the mallard in most parts of the country. And nobody can challenge the argument that Arkansas is the king of the mallard locate. Like, I mean, the mallard is king and Arkansas is the king for mallards. So that's pretty much undebatable, despite, rumors of its demise are greatly exaggerated. So
talk to me about that, because it's probably everybody just wants to talk about the negative, and that's what you hear. But I hear guys say that, there's not as many coming down. It's different than it used to be. And I know that it is different. I mean, just talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's totally different, but I always got to kind of compartmentalize, right? That different doesn't necessarily mean worse, or it's always going to stay this way. I mean, it may change right back. We don't know. a lot of good things have happened. Just this could be a whole nother conversation. But if you think back, it's kind of interesting where people establish their frame of reference, right? It's always fascinating to talk to people. I had a colleague in Louisiana he's lived there now. He actually was from California, but lived there for over 30 years now, and was getting finger in his chest from some guy talking about how terrible duck hunting was now, and he finally asked him, he's like, man, I've been duck hunting in Louisiana 30 years. I wasn't born and raised here. He said, how many years have you been duck hunting? Just out of curiosity. Well, 8. Like, well, so where's your frame of reference? And I think that's really important because some old timers, I say that kindly, Brent, have a different perspective on it. And
20s, 1920s.
right. There have been a lot of changes. And if you think kind of continentally in what's happened for waterfowl habitat, we've done a lot of good stuff. We've put a lot of wetlands back on the landscape across the entire mid-continent mallard range. So we should expect the distribution of those birds to change.
I see.
It does not mean that Arkansas is still not king, and it doesn't mean that Arkansas is maybe getting fewer ducks. An argument could be made that, hey, populations have been high for the last 5 to 10 years, let's say, record highs. You could make the argument that Arkansas maybe should have seen a bigger boost than what some people have perceived, and even what we've counted in some of our data. But it's just kind of a broadening out of this whole duck range, and it makes people uneasy. More people are shooting ducks in more places. It doesn't mean that Arkansas is still not the leader.
I see.
It makes it a little bit more unpredictable here, and so that predictability. I mean, that Mother Nature is never predictable, but humans just want everything to be exactly the same. We want those 700 ducks in the decoys right in the hole every single day we go. And it's kind of a human coping mechanism to always remember the most positive experiences.
Right.
And so you have it framed like expectations never go anything but up. The social scientists in this field tell me. They say expectations, they just keep ratcheting up.
And that's
every time you go.
And 44 years of duck hunting, that happened once.
Yeah. What you said about 800 ducks flying in there.
That happened one time.
And that's great perspective.
So
yeah. Well, and I think it's human nature too to want to find reasons, maybe, and not an excuse for not being successful, but like to talk about the time you went that it was bad, or how your luck has changed or whatever,
And I think another coping mechanism, which Brent, I know you've got opinions about, is gear. I mean, the amount of money that people are spending on every single piece of gear now compared to what they were spending on it 25 years ago is just absolutely nuts. And hey, this is America. They can spend their money however they want to, and that's awesome. But people have high expectations, and sometimes the season doesn't deliver on that. So they buy this piece of gear that's going to help them reconcile that gap. I think the expectations then go even further up.
So you're saying the more you spend on gear, the more expectation you have.
Well, sure, you're more invested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you drive around these parking lots and you've got $60,000 to $80,000, and we talked about there'd be 200-300 vehicles in Biomeat on a given day,
right? And
half of those have got let's say $50,000 to $70,000+ parked there.
So
add that up.
They've got
that's a lot of investment
to bring some duck meat home.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Well, and then I wonder how many were people talking bad about Arkansas duck hunting 40 years ago? I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there were people that had bad duck hunts 40 years ago. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, sure they did, but
there wasn't an internet then.
The biggest roadblock or the biggest stumbling block that we ran into was overcrowding. And as duck hunting got more popular, and I can attribute it only to what I saw. A TV show comes out about duck hunting, and then the next year, the parking lots start getting fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller of people. And I would say it would have been a boon to duck stamp sales and ammunition sales, and Pittman Robertson probably benefited from that, which benefited the whole state, everything. But you've also still got a limited amount of space.
Yeah.
With a large influx of new people.
And that's what I would say. I enjoy this sociological discussion about human expectations. The last thing that I want people to think is that, me and Luke are saying the duck hunting in Arkansas is absolutely perfect, and anybody that thinks otherwise is a crazy person. No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a challenged resource continentally. I think we've got some access problems. We've got some habitat problems, which will be part 2. We got plenty of habitat problems in Canada. So yeah, we deal with unrealistic expectations a lot, but but on the flip side of that, it's a challenge resource, and we need to be more adaptive in how we manage the resource, but also in how we deal with people in their favorite 60 days of the year.
Yeah. Hey, Austin, tell me your philosophy, just what you see this next trail looking like for the Game and Fish and your leadership inside of it.
Yeah, we're in a really nice turning point right now. Not necessarily turning a nice turning point because I'm the new guy here and I think everything needs to change, but turning point culturally in the agency where a lot of people internally know that we need to change. We've got major fluctuations going on the regulatory landscape, and also some major changes in the habitat as well. And I mean, Luke, tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but the number one thing that we have going for us right now, I think we got a really solid set of commissioners. And so,
you want to badmouth any of this?
Yeah, I would not advise.
Is there going to be a pregnant pause here?
It looks like they're okay.
Well, I already kind of I held out when Austin talked about the hiring process, and because there's lots of other stories from the staff side about how that went down, as you would imagine.
I hear Missouri needs a new waterfowl. You may have to take that
Arizona.
job.
Yeah. Arizona's a great place to work on waterfowl. They got no GTRs. No, it is. I agree with that because, and the only thing I'll say about it as a evidence of that is that probably one of the biggest issues that this agency has ever tackled, and I don't think that's hyperbole, is the GTR stuff. And we started that a couple times, but 2014, let's say. And so that's an entire term of one commissioner, 7 years now, which you could do the math. So that's like however many that is total, 10 or 12 of them, different people.
Right.
And we have held the same ground and continued on the same path toward change since 2014 with that many different commissioners.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not a single commissioner that I know that I would point at and be like, oh, yeah, he's not a very good guy. They're all awesome. They all serve the state for 7-year terms. It's all unpaid, and they put in just an immense amount of work, and they all do it because they care about the resource. What I meant by that comment is we don't just have great people right now. We've got a rare chemistry going on where we're all pointed in the right direction, and we're all
can get stuff done.
Yeah, we can get stuff done. So back to your original question, we're about to roll out a strategic plan for the agency. Haven't had one in some time, but we're going to roll that out soon. And the way that I'm thinking about everything is habitat first and Arkansans always. In the Marine Corps, we say that about the mission first, Marine always. Well, habitat first and Arkansans always. And at the end of the day, everything we do comes back to habitat. We can talk about, the deer resource, the duck resource, the trout resource. Everything comes back to habitat. And if we don't stay laser focused on that, then everything else is just details.
Yeah.
Second, Arkansans. That means communicating to them what's going on in the resource, having regulations that make sense, and providing meaningful, quality public lands with access.
Yeah.
So,
and you've been having these public meetings that are different. Tell us about one of your public meetings. What would it be like?
Yeah. So the public meetings that we do with the GTRs,
WrestleMania.
Actually, no. Actually, no. So I worked on
GTR.
Yeah,
See,
that's
we
what I was
haven't-
going to say. What is
okay,
that?
so we haven't. The next podcast will be about Green Tree Reservoirs.
Yeah.
So Green Tree Reservoirs are this basically flooded timber.
Which you talked about in the podcast.
We
Like you talked
foreshadowed
yeah,
a ton about
a
it.
ton.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Of course.
So GTR
Yeah.
GTR means intentionally flooded timber.
Yes. Brent, I know, would agree with this. Definitely Luke. But there are people in Arkansas, for good reason, that are not interested in hunting ducks over a rice field or a moist soil
I know
unit.
I'm not.
The only thing they want to do is see ducks laying in the
Nor is
trees.
Josh.
We're on the same
That's
page, Mr. Booth.
And I get it because it's magical. But I worked on the Hill for a little bit when I was still in the Marine Corps. So I got to see some congressional town halls. And I wanted to take a little bit different approach from just bringing our poor staff in and, passing the mic around and letting Luke and everybody else get yelled at. So what we did was we made it not informal, but we intentionally selected venues where we could cook for people. It was a goal of mine from day one that I wanted to get off the stage, eye to eye with people, and actually literally break bread with them. And
Cornbread?
I don't
Always.
think we had cornbread. I think we had some rolls.
That was a miss.
Yeah. I got your back.
Yeah.
Okay, next time. Brent.
We'll
Luke, try that in a Nevada waterfowl position now.
we'll have cornbread when we do our Black Panther town halls.
Oh,
Here we go.
yeah.
I'm waiting to jump on him about that.
Luke's still got to tell us about his podcast idea, but carry on.
Yeah. So we would walk in this meeting. I would kick us off, talk very high surface level about what we were doing on each GTR. And then I would bring up the commissioners, bring out the staff. All of the commissioners were wearing blue Arkansas Game and Fish shirts. I would introduce all the commissioners and where they were from. And then all the agency staff, including Luke and myself, were wearing white shirts. And I would introduce each of the staff members saying, this is Luke Naylor. He's our waterfowl biologist. If you have questions about anything pertaining to ducks or geese, just ask him. This is Rob Willie over here. Rob Willie is our habitat program coordinator. If you have questions about forest management and red oaks and white oaks and all that stuff, ask Rob. And so we would go down the line, and then one of the last things that I always did is I said, if you're wearing a white shirt and you hunt ducks on public land, raise your hand. And all the guys raise your hand. And then I would say, all right, we're going to talk again in an hour. And I would turn the mic off, and we had maps set up around the room, and people are eating barbecue. At some places they're having a beer. And the conversation was actually conversation. It was actually productive, meaningful dialogue. And in all 4 public meetings, I made a point to remove myself from the crowd and just kind of go back and observe. And every single time I would look out over the room, there were white shirts and blue shirts, and they were each in their own little pocket of people. And the only thing that was happening was heads nodding up and down. So that was tremendous for me to watch, these guys like Luke that I see work so hard every single day, in their element, in their expertise, actually having eye to eye conversations with people.
So they've been successful, huh?
They've been very well. Luke, what do you think?
Well, compare that to the old way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a need to be present, to kind of open your doors and have people come in and have an opportunity to communicate. But we used to hold a series of regulatory public meetings every year, and it got to the point you'd have 20 or 30 game and fish staff and about 5 members of the public show up.
Yeah,
and we did a few of them a couple of years ago about GTRs, and went pretty well. Not a lot of yelling and screaming and people angry at each other. That's a good thing. That's
I know.
If it's only a little bit.
We
that's
thought
a
you
win.
liked those passionate people, Luke.
I do, but what was neat about this new way is that there's a difference between having a passionate conversation with someone, disagreeing, agreeing, whatever, having an argument versus having a podium.
Yeah.
Either whether that be us or be a member of the public. And it kind of puts everybody on the same level playing field, where we're not talking, literally in a lot of cases, talking down to people. giving PowerPoints and everybody's going to sleep and tired of hearing it. And then also have an open mic night
Yeah.
for the public where people start to get amens and preach it brothers and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of you kind of get the whole crowd riled up. It ends up being one person
That's right.
carrying the whole
It's not an effective
you
way
don't
to
get
communicate with a lot
yeah,
of
you
people.
don't get any information out to anybody because that
Right.
person, whether it's us or them,
Yeah.
like it's not productive for either of us.
Yeah.
And they all left home with somebody they felt like.
And we would end every meeting the same way too. Right? You know, we had an hour of dialogue with staff. I would come back up there. We'd hand out some door prizes, and then the last thing we would say is I would say, is there anybody that's going to walk out that door tonight with their question not answered? And sometimes we'd have a few of them raise their hand, and we'd sort through it that way. But eventually, you know, that was their time to ask questions, to have an open mic, because I am sensitive to people that are upset, and I want to hear them out. As a director, that's my job. But we heard them out, and everybody walked the door, didn't have a question, or they forever hold their peace.
Well, it sounds like you're making the agency more accessible to people.
Yeah.
That just sounds
I
like
hope so.
what the goal is. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate
Hey,
it.
great to be here.
It's good to be here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for your contribution to the main podcast, both of you. And this next week is going to be we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the Green Tree Reservoirs, which is why we started this whole conversation. Sure. And for the record, I approached these guys about this. They didn't call me and say, "Hey, we want you to do a podcast on this." That's
right.
not the way it happened at all.
That's right.
I heard about what was going on, knew nothing about it, thought that I should, learned a little bit about it, and thought that's interesting. And then so we're making this. We're going to do a 2-part series on Arkansas duck hunting and the GTR situation. Yeah. So thanks for coming up here, guys. Luke,
Yeah.
Perfect. I really
it.
appreciate it.
Thanks for
Glad
having us.
to be here.
Austin, thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
You gonna thank us?
Thank you so much, Ms. Newcomb, for being here.
For saying yes.
This show is sponsored in part by BetterHelp. Around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of just expanding on what we've already done right. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you actually want to eat breakfast. In the last year, I've been more diligent about going to the gym on a regimented schedule, and it's made a lot of difference in my life. Therapy helps you find your strengths so that you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit BetterHelp.com/Grease today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Grease.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.